What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with a new deck and battle here on PTCGO featuring a new Guardians Rising deck. And so for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Drampa GX Garbodor. And this is actually a deck that has apparently been doing pretty well over in Japan. I actually found a list that I think placed well or won a tournament. I forget, but it did well at a tournament, I know that. And so I found the list and I just kind of adopted it to our current standard format. Since ours is Primal Clash on and they play XY on, so a couple cards are different, but the overall concept is still going to be the same. I felt like it'd be a cool deck to take a look at. So let's see what this one is going to be all about. So the main key component of the deck, or I'm sorry, not the main one, but the first key component is going to be the new Drampa GX from Guardians Rising. 180 hit points, pretty standard for a basic 2-prize attacker. Fighting weakness, which isn't too relevant at the moment, but if Lycanroc decides to become a little bit more popular, that could be problematic. But as for right now, I think Drampa is fine. 2 retreat cost, which is not ideal, but we do run some ways to more easily deal with that as well. But let's look at the attacks on this guy. It has Righteous Edge for a single colorless energy, does 20 damage, and discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So this can sometimes be a decent attack to lead the game with. You know, there's a lot of decks that do play special energy. Decidueye sometimes, their entire list can play exclusively special energy if you're playing against the rainbow version. So definitely a good attack against that deck. Also gets Mega Rayquaza, Yveltal, etc. So a decent attack for sure. But the main attack we're going to be looking at here is going to be Berserk. So for 3 colorless energy, we're going to be doing 80 damage plus 70 more if any of our bench Pokemon have any damage counters on them. So we're going to be hitting for 150, but with the new Choice Band, we can bump that up to 180, which is great. The math actually works out great for that, since most non-fighting Fury belted EXs and GX only have about 170, 180 damage, maybe with the exception of like Lapras or Wailord or even Wishy Washy GX. But we do play the Team Magma secret base in this list, and that's what's going to allow us to hit for these numbers. So the Magma secret base, we'll get to that more a little bit in this deck profile. But that's going to allow us to get some damage counters on the board for us to hit for 180 with a Choice Band. And actually, if our opponent benches stuff while Magma Secret Base is out, even if it is one of those Pokemon like a Lapras, that'll actually put it within one-shot range of Drampa anyway. So definitely just a super solid attack that hits for some great numbers right now in the current game. So that's going to be what the main attack on this guy is, but it also has a GX move, which is pretty solid too. So it has Big Wheel GX for a single colorless energy. Shuffle your hand into your deck and draw an insane 10 cards. Like, that is so ridiculous. I mean, granted, our opponent can just end our hand away down to a lower hand size, but I'd argue in the early game when you're using this, it's usually going to be because your hand is dead anyways or needs to be refreshed. So even if your opponent does end you, they're still going to be refreshing your hand from probably a better state than what it was from before when you used Big Wheel. So definitely a good GX move, I would say. So especially if our opponent doesn't end us, just to have 10 cards to work with, you almost always have some sort of decent option at your disposal on your next turn. So yeah, Drampa is going to be the first kind of like main attacker in this deck. But let's check out what the rest of the deck is going to be comprised of. So we're playing a 4-4 Garbodor line, and we're going to have an even split between 2 of the old one and 2 of the new one. So you guys should be plenty familiar with this Garbodor by now. It has that Garbotoxin ability. As long as Garbodor has a tool attached to it, each Pokemon in play, hand, and discard pile has no abilities. So just a nice little form of disruption. Since there's a lot of abilities running around in the game, we have Vileplume, we have Shaman, we have the new Tapu Lele, which we'll get to. So just a ton of stuff that this Garbodor can potentially shut off. See, like I said, we also do play 2 of the new Trashalanche Garbodor, and so this is the new super broken Garbodor that came out in Guardians Rising. And I say that because it has this Trashalanche attack. It does 20 damage times the number of item cards in your opponent's discard pile. So, you know, I think most decks at the time of filming run about 20-ish items in their deck. So, I mean, you can do the math on that. You're hitting for a lot of damage, even if your opponent only plays down about half of those. So we'll have to see if people start changing the way they build decks now that Garbodor's out. But as of right now, this attack is just so broken, I think. So definitely a great late game hitter. So we kind of want to lead the game with our Drampa GX and maybe clean up at the end once our opponent has kind of drawn through their deck a little bit. And so it does have a 3 retreat, but like I said, we do have some ways to get around that. And it has the Acid Spray attack as well, but it's really not too relevant. Most of the time we want to be using Trashalanche instead. And so for our trebuchets, I actually played an even split between the 2 old one, which is the Acid Spray one. So 10, flip a coin if heads, discard an energy, attach your opponent's active. And then 2 of the new one that has the Stomp Off attack. Honestly, I have no idea which one I prefer at this point. I just decided to do an even split just because they both have their own kind of utility. So I figured I'd just try out both and see which one ends up doing better. But I think right now I'm actually favoring the Acid Spray one. So next up we have 2 of the new Tapu Lele GX. So this is going to be another super hype card that came out of Guardians Rising. Mainly for the ability Wonder Tag. Whenever you play this Pokemon from your bench or from your hand onto your bench, you get search your deck for a supporter card. So this is a great consistency booster for us. We can grab any supporter that we want. And it has 170 hit points, which is way better than the old Jirachi EX or even Shaman that only has 110. But the other reason this card is good is because it's actually a decent backup attacker. It has Energy Drive for just a DCE. It does 20 times the number of energy on both active Pokemon. So Drampa on one hand takes at least 2 attachments to power up, but if we do need kind of an attacker out of nowhere in case our only Drampa gets knocked out, we can throw down Tapu Lele, grab a supporter, and also throw down a double colorless energy and start attacking with it as well. And it does have a GX move, but it's really not too relevant since it kind of clashes with the strategy of the deck, I think. Okay, then we have 1 Shaman EX for the ability Setup. So pretty self-explanatory, guys. You should be plenty familiar with this. Draw until you have 6 cards whenever you bench it. And this deck is only playing 1, but I decided to, like I said, kind of base this off the Japanese list, which only does play 1. So I was like, you know what? They're doing good with it. They only played 1 Shaman. Let's go with it. Let's see what happens. And then the last of the Pokemon is going to be Carbink. And this is actually a card that was not featured in the Japanese list, but I decided to play it in here to maybe potentially deal with Sylveon GX, since that does look to be a popular deck going into this new format. So we're playing it for its ability Energy Keeper. Basic energy attached to your basic Pokemon can't be discarded by effects of your opponent's attacks, abilities, or trainer cards. So for example, against Sylveon, they play a ton of energy disruption, and it's really not that great to attack with Garbodor in that matchup until a very late game, because they can actually get by probably about half the game without playing many item cards. So that means we are going to have to attack with Drampa GX and or Tapu Lele GX. And so they both have bigger attack costs, and Sylveon can potentially strip us of our energy and prevent us from attacking. So I felt like Carbink might be a decent out against that deck. So that's going to be our Pokemon line. Going into the trainer cards, we'll start with our supporters. We're playing 3 Sycamore, discard your hand and draw 7, and then 2 N. Each player shuffles their hand in their deck and draws equal to the amount of prize cards they have left. Pretty standard cards. You guys should be familiar with these by now. But we're playing a couple of other interesting draw cards. The main one's going to be Hala. It's a new supporter that came out of Guardians Rising. So shuffle your hand into your deck. If you've used your GX, draw 7 cards. If not, draw 4 cards. So this is great because we typically use Big Wheel GX, Drampa's GX move, pretty early on in the game. So that means we can actually abuse Hala a decent amount and not have to discard our hand every time we want to draw 7. And even though we're only playing 1 of this guy, we are playing 2 Tapu Lele, so that means we can easily search this out if we need to. Then we're also playing 1 Professor Kukui. So draw 2 cards, and during this turn your opponent's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So we're mainly using this for the 20 damage boost, since it is important to hit certain numbers against things like Mega Pokemon and like Stage 1 GXs. So for example, if we have a Choice Banded Drampa, we hit for 180. They've taken an additional 20 damage from Team Magma's secret base, so that's going to put them up to 200 damage. And then with Professor Kukui, we can do the extra 20 to typically knock out, like I said, most Stage 1 GXs and Megas. Then we also do get to draw 2 cards, which is kind of cool too. So we have 2 Lysander, just to choose what we want to take knockouts on. Then we have 1 Team Flagrant. This is another card that was not actually featured in the Japanese list. They actually played Zerosic, but of course that is not legal in our standard format. So I decided to change that over to Team Flagrant. It seemed like a decent card since they fill kind of a similar role in the deck. Then we also have 1 Wally. This is actually a card that was featured in the Japanese list. I'm not sure how I feel about it out of the testing I've done with this, but I definitely see the reasoning for it. So search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon, excluding EX, and put it on that Pokemon. And you can even use this on the first turn of the game or the first turn that Pokemon came into play. So this can be good in a couple situations. So we can potentially get out a turn 1 Garbodor to shut off abilities, or a turn 1 Garbodor to use its Trashalanche attack, or even mid-game if one of our Garbodors gets knocked out and we don't have another one in play, we can bench a Trubbish and use Wally to go right into the Garbodor. And with Tapu Lele GX, we can easily search this out if we need to as well. But in my testing, I've only used it I think once, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's an okay card, but feel free to play around with this. But this is a card that would be kind of on the my list of cards I would consider cutting if I was going to continue testing this deck further. Okay, so 4 versus Seeker, just to reuse all those different supporter cards we just talked about. And for the rest of our items, we have 4 Ultra Ball, pretty standard, just to search our deck for any Pokemon that we want. 1 Super Odd, shuffle 3 of any combination of Pokemon and basic energy from your discard into your deck. So I've found some instances where I think I might prefer Rescue Stretcher, but Super Odd might be good too because it actually will get us basic energy back, which will increase our chances of Max Elixir working. So play around with this, but right now I'm just going to leave it as a Super Odd. So to Max Elixir, like I just mentioned, look at the top 6 cards of your deck and attach a basic energy find there to one of your benched basic Pokemon. So sometimes if our only attacker gets knocked out and we need to power up a Drampa GX quickly in 1 turn, we can attach a double colorless energy and then Max Elixir a psychic energy to it to power it up kind of out of nowhere. So next up we have 1 Field Blower. This is another new card from Guardians Rising. So choose up to 2 of any combination of tool cards or stadiums in play and discard them. So this is good to take off our opponents like choice bands and whatever tools they might be playing. And it also increases our Garbodor's damage output as well once we discard those tools. Or of course we can use this to discard their stadiums as well. But definitely a great card I expect to pop up in almost every deck going forward now that Guardians Rising is out. So next up we have 3 Choice Band. It's a new tool card from Guardians Rising. The attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to, it does 30 more to your opponent's active GX or EX. So really important to hit the right numbers to take one-hit knockouts with our Drampas, and just in general, a great card just to boost our damage output. And the last of the item cards is going to be 3 Floatstone, just to give our Pokemon free retreat, mainly Garbodor though, since it is kind of a big guy. It does need a way to get out of the active spot easily if someone does decide to Lysander it. And to round out the trainer cards that we have in this list, we're playing 2 of the new Altar of the Moon. So the retreat cost of each Pokemon in play with Dark Energy or Psychic Energy is 2 less. So this is good because it just helps prevent us from discarding excessive amounts of energy and preserves the energy that we have on our field. But then also we're playing 2 of the Ting Magma's secret base, like I previously mentioned. So whenever a player puts a non-Ting Magma Pokemon from their hand onto their bench, they take 2 damage counters. So we can use this to make sure our Drampas hit for 180 with a Choice Band, and also, like I said earlier as well, it will kind of ping away at our opponent's Pokemon and kind of chip away at their health a little bit. And then just to round out the list, we're playing 4 double colorless energy, and then we're also playing 8 psychic energy. So yeah guys, that is going to be the list we are going to try out for this deck. Definitely fun. It's been fun to draw 10 cards with this GX move. So we don't have Colress in format currently, so it's been nice to be able to draw like an absurd amount of cards out of your deck with this GX move. So I've been enjoying it. But anyways, I'll switch over to the battle portion of the video and show you how this one looks in action. Alright guys, it looks like we got ourselves a game here. Just going to call it coin flip. And do get to win the coin flips, that's always fun. So let's see what we start with. A big bunch of nothing. And here we see a fairy drop. So this could be maybe Mega Gardevoir or maybe potentially Sylveon. If it's Sylveon, it's definitely good that we have the Carbink, that's for sure. But definitely not our ideal starter, just because it doesn't do much in most matchups. Actually, it's going to be a Mega Mewtwo deck, it looks like. If I just had to guess. But he does play Fairy Energy, so guessing just to abuse Fairy Drop. But here I'm just going to end. And looks like I'm going to grab a Trubbish, which is okay, I guess. And here I'm just going to put down the Magma base. And maybe I should have actually put down the Magma base, then bench Trubbish. I'm not sure. Only downside to that is if my opponent had a Lysander DCE, they would have been able to knock out the Trubbish. So I think that's why I think I'm just going to hang on to it and bench it after the Magma base. Here, our opponent's going to get a Psychic Energy down and then put another Mega Mewtwo, I'm sorry, a regular Mewtwo on the bench. He's going to take that 20 damage from the Magma Secret Base. And here we're going to see an end, which I am fine with. Our hand was not too great. And this one's not much better either. So, yeah, okay, so we do have Drampa at least, and we can potentially get like a Max Elixir attachment combo going to use a Big Wheel GX. So let's see what we can do here. Yeah, let's play Max Elixir, and unfortunately we whiff. Gonna bench another Trubbish just because Garbodor is going to be so important against Mewtwo since we can take easy one-hit knockouts. But here I'm going to Lysander the other Mewtwo, and I think it's just attached to... maybe attached to Carbink. That way we can just potentially can retreat into whoever we want next turn. Because if we attach to Drampa, our opponent could just Lysander up a Trubbish to stall with. So I prefer to keep the energy on Carbink until next turn. Here opponent's going to Sycamore. And we're going to see a Trader's Mail. Okay, so we're going to grab a Mega Turbo. So Mega Mewtwo is getting a little scary, and our opponent's just going to end their turn to Mega Evolve. Mega Mewtwo is actually a really good attacker against Drampa, so I am... definitely a little scared here, but I'm going to use Kukui. And actually we draw into Garbodor, but our opponent looks like they've played 3 item cards. We're only hitting for 120 right now because of weakness. So I'm not sure if we really want to go swinging with Garbodor until we can get a one-hit knockout. So I think we're just going to retreat here and use a Big Wheel GX to refresh our hand. Okay, so, and I like actually, normally I wouldn't evolve into Garbodor. I would, you know, rather it come out of nowhere, but here it kind of forces our opponent to, hey, do you want to Lysander Garbodor or do you want to end this massive hand? So that's the only reason I probably evolved right there. Here opponent's going to use Fairy Drop to heal a little bit. And okay, so we have a ton of stuff to work with, but no double colorless energy. So what do we do here? We have a ton of options. That's the only downside to this, is there's a lot of thinking that has to be done here, I think. And we do have a Garbodor. We can evolve the damaged one. I mean, I think it's fine. We don't have to attach the tool, but I like maybe just evolving here either way. And here I think I'm going to Flare Grunting. And here I think I'm debating if I want to attach the Psychic Energies because I prefer it to be a double colorless if possible. I really don't want to have to do 3 manual attachments on this Drampa, so I'd maybe even consider attaching the Garbodor or just saving it. And here it looks like, yeah, I'm definitely like kind of conflicted about this, guys, but here I just decided to Righteous Edge. Just going to hold the Psychic Energy and kind of like, you know, not revealed, you know, not attached to the Garbodor and reveal that we have a way to attack Mewtwo. And also it makes our opponent's Mega Mewtwo's do more damage to us. Since Psychic Infinity does 10 plus 30 more for every energy on both active. And so here our opponent smacked us for 120. And here just counting how many item cards our opponent has in the discard pile. I'm going to evolve into the other Trashalanche Garbodor. And actually we can play down Altar of the Moon and free retreat into Garbodor potentially. Here we're going to Kukui, and this is actually going to help us get the knockout here. We could do this or play Field Blower either way. So we're going to retreat for free thanks to our Altar of the Moon, come up, attach a Psychic Energy, and, well, actually I think we should attach the Float Stone. Okay, yeah, so let's do that. We'll attach the Float Stone just to call off our opponent's abilities, and then, yep, we're going to take a knockout for 240 on this Mega Mewtwo. So, yeah, I'm liking Garbodor against this Mega Mewtwo right now. Definitely seems good. Only downside is Garbodor is pretty easily knocked out by Mega Mewtwo, so that's the only thing, is that they can definitely respond here and take a knockout on us. And our opponent's going to bump our stadium, but I'm kind of okay with that either way. Okay, so our opponent is going to grab a Lysander off the Trainer's Mail, so they're probably going to save that for next turn. They're going to play a Versio for Center Lady, so I mean, by all means, go ahead and play your items. I will not complain here. So we have some options. We can attach this DCE to Drampa and do like, what, 150, but really if we just get a Psychic Energy, we're in a good spot. So, I mean, I would hate to discard this entire hand, but I'd almost say we might have to, just because we kind of need the Psychic Energy. It's going to be a really pivotal turn in the game. Looks like I'm going to grab a Shaman. Probably just to thin out our deck because we're going to Sycamore here. And thinking about Field Blowing, but in case we whiff the energy, I want to keep that link on it. Okay, and we whiffed. So, well, I'm glad I didn't play Field Blower because now that means our opponent can't attach a Float Stone to this Mega Mewtwo. But I'm still not happy about the spot we're in, so we're just going to have to retreat and promote this Carbink. And, yeah, so we did see our opponent get a Lysander off of, off their Trainer's Mail last turn, so, yeah, they're definitely just going to Lysander our Garbodor and take a knockout here, which, I'm kind of scared of, just to be honest. This is definitely not a good spot to be in, so... Okay, we hit a double colorless energy, and so here we're probably going to throw down a fresh Drampa, and actually what I might like to see here is maybe a Flare Grunt Righteous Edge. That could be pretty good. So we're going to discard Ultra Ball and DCE here. It looks like that's what I'm thinking about doing, but the one thing I think I forgot about here... Okay, I'm going to save the Hala. Or I'm going to save DC discarding Hala. So here I'm going to grab a Garbodor just to thin it out of the deck, I believe. So yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, we can't really do much with Tapu Lele either. I prefer to keep that in the deck in case we do need an attacker later. So... Well, we discard Hala, so now I think we have to play Versus Seeker to get a supporter. So, looks like I'm gonna play Hala. So I definitely think I may have potentially misplayed a little bit here. I think maybe in hindsight I should have just Flare Grunted and Righteous Edge and saved the Hala for the next turn. But I think I was just really dead set on trying to get Super Odd to get our Garbodor back in the deck, because that's actually the last of our Garbodors. Both of them have gone down, and that's one reason I was kind of wanting to increase the amount of Trashalanche Garbodors in this list. But here we're still going to Righteous Edge with a Choice Band, do 50 damage. So we discard some of our opponent's energy, which is cool. And our opponent's going to Pokemon Center Lady, so this is definitely not good. You know, at the beginning of this game, things were looking so good for us. We knocked out that Mewtwo. You know, we've set up pretty decently, but our opponent's creeping back into the game. I don't know if I like that too much, so... we have 11 cards left in deck. We should be able to hit an energy off Max Elixir. We do. So that's good. We can put one on this other Drampa. And so I've got some options here. Where do I want to attach this Psychic Energy? That's the thing. You know, I could attach it to the active, I guess. And that way we can do 180. And so here I'm thinking about just throwing a Float Stone down on Trubbish, and we're going to Sycamore here. And we still don't hit Super Odd out of, and we have 3 cards left in deck too. So this is I'm getting kind of scared because we're kind of giving our opponent a chance to sneak back into this game, and I really don't like this. But still, we're going to hit this Mewtwo for 180, which is great. Soften that thing up. But I believe we're actually out of double colorless energy at this point, so that's the only other thing I'm not liking right now. And here our opponent gets down another Mewtwo. They get a Max Elixir onto it, a Spirit Link, so ugh. I'm not liking how this is going right now. And they're going to Sycamore, okay, getting rid of a Garbodor and a Lysander, it looks like. So they're definitely going to take out this... Oh, and they get Fairy Drop. Excellent. Oh, man. And they're going to Versus Seeker. What are they going to grab here? They're going to grab a Lysander, so basically I lose next turn, I feel like. That's what it seems like. We need Super Odd. We just need Super Odd. Ugh. We get a Psychic Energy. Oh my god, this is terrible. So, I mean, our opponent has Lysander though, so I'm pretty sure they can just knock out this Drampa that we have on the bench, and that'll be game. Like, unless I'm missing something here, but... And I'm going to attach a Psychic Energy, it looks like, but I think I prefer attaching to Trubbish since I think I'm out of DCE either way. And so what are we going to do here? Oh, Pokemon Center Lady. Excellent. The thing is, I think our opponent actually could have just won here if all they had to do was Lysander the damaged Drampa, and they could have taken a knockout. So I think our opponent may have misplayed here. If that's the case, I'm okay with that. We'll take it. We have 2 cards left in deck, so we can still potentially pull out a win. And yes, we hit Super Odd, so we can actually Super Odd both Garbodors and I guess a Trubbish back in the deck, and we can actually use Wally to get out the last Garbodor here. So I think that's definitely what we should do. I'm still not liking our odds because all our opponent has to do is attach a Psychic Energy to his bench Mewtwo next turn and can still knock out our Garbodor, so we still might lose this either way, but we have a chance at least right now. So we're going to do Trashalanche, going down to 2 prizes just like our opponent. Okay, we actually had DC and a Versus Seeker, so if our opponent doesn't knock us out, we are actually in a great spot. So come on, what does our opponent have? Hopefully nothing. And they have a Fairy Energy, so that means they're actually not going to be able to knock us out with his bench Mewtwo, because otherwise Shadow Shot would have knocked out Garbodor. And nice. Okay, so we can actually just Lysander Mewtwo, and then just take a knockout with Trashalanche. So for a whopping 720 damage, that seems appropriate to end this match. But yeah, I think our opponent definitely did misplay just a little bit there at the end, not Lysandering the bench Drampa. I don't know, maybe he miscalculated his math to take a knockout or something, but I'm pretty sure that would have been a knockout. But we'll take it, guys. We'll take the win with Drampa GX Garbodor. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely stay tuned. We have a ton more Guardians Rising decks and coverage coming in the future, so keep an eye out for those. But as usual, feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out our merchandise over at RareCandyTCG.com. If you can pick up something to help support the channel, it'd mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.